In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Destin Melbartis, Nathan Lutz, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome all you lords, ladies, and knights to the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and then talk about them. I'm your host, Russell Guest, and joining me today is my good friend and co-host from right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Mr. Chad Robinson. How you doing, sir?
It's movie night. I'm excited.
All right, we're working hard. We're working 9 to 5, but before we do that, we got to introduce a great guest. Speaking of 5, I think this is his 5th time on the show, right? We got to get his jacket for the 5-Timers Club. Mr. DJ Bryant.
What a segue.
Yeah, DJ.
Well, hello.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about y'all?
Good. Let's kick this thing off. And so today's movie features Miss Dolly Parton. And she's a renowned breakthrough female musician. So who's another impactful female musician who you love and just want to give a shout out to here on the show? DJ?
I came up with 5. I'm going to start off with Cher, who is still making music at 70 plus years old and is a legend, I think. Aside from that, we got Annie Lennox, Lady Gaga, Aretha Franklin, and Stevie Nicks. It's a hard one for me to choose just one.
Well, we're going to let all of those go through because they're all good. So, Chad, can you follow that up?
I'm going a different genre than all of DJ's mentions. I'm going with Lzzy Hale. I am a huge fan of Hailstorm. I'm a huge fan of what the women of rock are doing right now, and Lzzy Hale pops up everywhere, so kudos to her.
She is great, and my choice here is probably a direct influence to Lzzy. I love Miss Joan Jett. She's a Pennsylvanian. Actually, so is Lzzy Hale, actually. A lot of Pennsylvanian places there. So Miss Joan Jett helped break a lot of barriers. She rocked when women were told to play silk string guitars and to keep it quiet and in the coffee shop. She didn't play by those rules, so very cool for her.
You could say she didn't care about her reputation.
Nah. Now, DJ, what is the last movie you saw?
Last movie I saw was Coda, 2021 Apple TV Plus.
Academy Award winning.
Yes.
I haven't gotten to this one yet. How did it go down for you?
I liked it. So it's definitely one of those films that I would share with my parents because the humor is just edgy enough, but not too edgy. It's a really sweet story, and I was crying throughout most of the movie in a good way.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That sounds good. And Chad, what about you? What's the last movie you saw?
It was movie night with my daughter last night, so we checked into Disney's Moana. Good times had by all.
Okay. I just watched Through the Eyes of Tammy Faye, which is another Oscar-winning effort. I'm a Jessica Chastain fan, and she did an amazing job in that. So
That's a great movie. I love it.
I was not expecting to like it given the subject matter, but they challenged me as an audience. I got more out of it than I thought I was going to. So you're right. I kind of went in thinking, I don't know about this. But it won me over. Oscar deserved, though. Let's start off today's movie. Chad, what are we going to be doing today?
From 1980, 9 to 5.
That's right. This movie is a Jane Fonda vehicle, and she brings along with her Lily Tomlin, Dolly Parton, Dabney Coleman, Elizabeth Wilson, and Sterling Hayden. The year is 1980. Budget is $10 million. It grosses $103 million. It's 10 times what it cost to make it. It's a huge return for it. Massively successful. Places number 2 in the box office. That's impressive given that this is a comedy movie. It comes in behind only Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. That made a ton of money, so it just shows you what kind of box office performance this had. It comes ahead of Stir Crazy. IMDb gives this a 6.9. Rotten Tomatoes gives it an 83% and an audience score of 74%. Given the high box office returns and the accolades that it gets, I'm surprised that these percentages seem low. I'm curious about that. We'll talk why you think that might be. It's a 2-time Grammy Award winner for Best Country Song for the song 9 to 5 and a Grammy Award winner for Best Female Country Vocal Performance. It is an Academy Award nominee for Best Original Song. It doesn't get the Oscar on that one. And the Writers Guild of America Award nomination as well for Best Written Comedy. And AFI gives this some distinction. It gives us the number 74 Laughs movie for the 100 Years of Laughs or 100 Greatest Comedies. And it also has it at number 78 for Greatest Songs from a Movie. So for the song 9 to 5. So this movie has its place in history. The critics clearly are approving of it at the time. It spurred on a successful sitcom that comes on after it, and that was on for 85 episodes. And Dolly Parton's younger sister Rachel Dennison played Parton on that TV show. So this was clearly a movie that everybody responded to, but DJ, how did you respond to it?
I mean, I've loved this movie ever since I first saw it as a kid. I very clearly remember this always being on in the house. And watching it now, post-COVID, post-lockdown, and the Great Resignation, it is still so relevant to today. So I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So you came in as a kid. Do you feel like your eyes were taking it in differently as a kid? Or was it actually clicking for you at that point? And as you got older, you're like, oh, I've entered the workforce now. I'm viewing this in a whole different way now.
100% that. I had no idea what I was watching as a kid. I just knew there were like cartoon characters in it at points. And I just thought it was really fun, as well as it had a peppy songs.
So you're getting a lot more out of it as you have aged.
Definitely.
Chad, what about you? Had you taken in 9 to 5 before?
I don't think I'd taken it in from start to finish ever. I'd certainly caught portions of it. I feel like this is one of those movies that was just on TV constantly. So I'd seen snippets here and there, but yeah, this was my first time straight through. And like DJ, for me, it's in the same realm as Office Space of it's funnier and sadder now. There's a bit of that darkness in the comedy here where you're like, oh yeah, this is funny, but also yeah, this is my actual life too.
Okay, well, don't drink the rat poison. But I had never seen this one before, and I'm surprised. This was one that I don't know why nobody recommended it to me. Just flat out, short of having seen that it is on the AFI 100 movies list, and maybe being vaguely aware of like who was in it. Never seen it on TV. Just never came across it. So I'm the bad movie watcher this time, and I'm coming in with fresh eyes, and I loved this. I thought it was just a great time.
I feel like this is a required movie if you attend school in Tennessee. I have no idea how you got away from that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dolly Parton is definitely royalty in Eastern Tennessee, where I went to school in Knoxville, and with her being from Sevierville and Dollywood being such a mecca there, yes, there is a lot of appreciation for Miss Dolly Parton. I didn't fully get it at the time. Dolly Parton is, when we were growing up, Dolly Parton was having a lot of like surgeries done. Like she was kind of becoming a cartoon caricature. She was in the tabloids a lot, and they were, and I don't mean that there was legitimate stuff about it. Like she just became this person that the tabloids like to come after and write bizarre things about. And perhaps I did not see how cool she was until later. And even when I went down there to Tennessee, people were like, no, she's awesome. She's great. And I was like, okay, whatever. But it took me a little bit longer. It wasn't until Jack White came along and really complimented her in an interview and made me go back and look at the catalog of songs and say, beyond the big wigs and beyond all the applied nature of her, she's awesome. Long answer to that, Chad. You're right. People were pushing that at me while I was at University of Tennessee, and you're right. They were right. It just took me a little while to realize it. So, but I was prepared for that coming into this, and I didn't really expect much from her as an actress, but the whole thing was just a delight. I mean, it was well written, well performed, and I'm excited to get into this one. But there will be spoilers that lie ahead, so keep after the movie back after this ad break, and we will spoil this movie.
Welcome to the Flashback Flicks Retro Movie Podcast. I'm Ricky.
I'm Grayson.
And every week we review a movie from the past and reflect on things we missed, things we loved, and things we want to see again.
Yeah, because we believe any movie worth watching is worth watching again.
So if you like films, friendship, and a lot of callbacks,
I mean, just so many callbacks.
then subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever RSS feeds go for like-minded movie-loving individuals. Like you.
What happens when two modern film fans go back and rewatch all the old classic films from yesteryear to see if they hold up? You get the Classic Film Jerks podcast. Find the Classic Film Jerks podcast on all the major platforms.
All right, we're back, and this is your final warning. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. So, Chad, for those who haven't seen 9 to 5 since 1980, do you want to refresh people's memories?
We've got Judy Burnley. She's a recently divorced housewife, and she's played by Jane Fonda. She's introduced to the workforce via a job as a secretary at Consolidated Companies. Her supervisor, Violet Newstead, who's played by Lily Tomlin, she's a sharp-tongued widow. They both report to their sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot of a boss, Mr. Hart, who spreads rumors about his conquest of his secretary, Dora Lee, played by Dolly Parton. The women have enough of Hart's abuse and bond over the ways they'd off the guy if given a chance. Violet in particular dreamed of poisoning Hart and accidentally dumps rat poison into his coffee, which really anyone could do since it looks so similar to a sugar box. Hart is found in his office, chair tipped over and not moving. In an I Love Lucy-esque sequence, there's a hospital scene where the girls rush to the hospital only to confuse a conversation about a recently deceased man with that of their boss. Hart, in fact, had lived and simply fell out of a chair, but the girls are unaware. They steal a body from the hospital, believing it to be Hart, only to have to return it to the hospital later upon discovering it's some random stiff. The ladies are ratted out by local snitch, Roz, when Hart returns to the office, and then their boss attempts to blackmail the women. It goes poorly, and Dora Lee ties him up, and the girls decide to kidnap him for several weeks until they can reveal damning information on Hart. They order invoices to prove that their boss has been selling inventory and pocketing the proceeds, but it will take 4 to 6 weeks for the proof to arrive. Hart has to be kept locked up during the duration. The women forge Hart's signature and try to distract the workforce while at the office, ultimately approving popular policies that Hart had denied them, like daycare and pay raises. Hart finally manages to escape and restores the stolen inventory before Violet can get the invoices. Before Hart can report the women, the chairman of the board arrives and congratulates Hart on his office's improved productivity. Hart is promoted and transferred to Brazil, where he's kidnapped and never heard from again. Violet receives a promotion to vice president, Judy falls in love and marries the Xerox rep, and Dora Lee quits to become a country western singer. Good luck to her.
I think she's going to make it.
I'm not sure.
Now, DJ, this is a dark humor kind of story, and I'm detecting that with movies like Little Shop of Horrors and Death Becomes Her, this may be one of those areas that hits you in the right sweet spot.
I think you have totally hit my sweet spot very well, Russell, because as I said, like I grew up watching this movie, and one of the scenes that always stood out to me was the Snow White scene, and I love it because it's so cute and whimsical, but it's so dark at the same time. And that has definitely influenced me to this day in terms of just what I lean towards naturally.
Yeah, there's even when it's not a cartoon, there's something cartoonish about various parts of this movie. Dolly Parton flat out hog ties her boss.
Yes.
I mean,
With phone cord, yeah.
yeah, the nature of swapping out the rat poison for the coffee creamer and multiple times pointing out the box does look a lot alike. And yeah, it does.
Except for this little skull and crossbones here.
So I there, even when it's not actually animated, there's something very cartoonish and one step beyond what's just real about it. And I love that heightened reality that they put you into. It's set in a very realistic setting. The consequences are very real, but something about how the events unfold is animated and just funny in its own right. Like I do feel like it's like a cartoon.
Interestingly enough, it began its life as a drama, and it wasn't until Lily Tomlin was cast by Fonda that she actually considered it be a comedy. And in the end, they thought it worked better because, you know, if you have an audience with men, they don't want to hear this women's lib stuff. So let's spin it in a fun way and make it more palatable to the men while also tapping into this ginormous workforce of clerical workers who live this day and night.
Yeah, Jane Fonda's perspective on that was very interesting because she keeps repeating the phrase, I don't want to be on a soapbox, I don't want to be preaching. But when I think of soapbox and preaching, I kind of think of Jane Fonda. So it's.
Yeah, she's definitely not one to shy away from giving her thoughts on political matters or just, like you said, she's not one to shy away from that thing. So this is a new direction for her.
Yeah, but I think DJ nailed it. You can't cast Lily Tomlin and not make it a comedy. Lily Tomlin's just too witty, too snarky. She's just got this classic style, so it works really well. And to your point, Russell, it's more palatable to the men, which, 1980s workplace comedy. We've seen a lot of 80s office settings, and usually the male bosses are reacting to their female coworkers in less than positive ways.
Yeah. And it's interesting. We've undergone more and more and more this type of behaviors. Not accepted, but it is one of those mindful, like reminding kind of things. Just like, oh, this really isn't that far. This is the 80s. That's not that long ago. And it is not too hard to put yourself in their shoes and sit there and go like, no, that does suck. And it's funny that you said like the men wouldn't get behind it because I just don't see how, like, once you make a movie about people, you start to actually sympathize with people who are the story's about. So I would think that a drama would work. I mean, we covered Working Girl, and that was a drama, and it just turned into this good underdog story, like where there's a system, it's set against you, and you overcome it. But to your point, Chad, this is so accessible that it's hard to find any arguments with it unless you are a racist, egotistical, sexist bigot.
Right. Yeah, I think watching poor sweet Dolly Parton get preyed upon, you just have this natural instinct to defend her. Like, she's just such a pure treasure. Like, I have to protect this naive, tolerant Dora Lee, she's dealing with her boss literally chasing her around and pouncing on her at points, and she's still so sweet to him.
Yeah, coming on strong is an understatement.
Yeah, he's Pepe Le Pew strong.
Yeah, now it's interesting that you said that the choice was to go with a comedy there. It's interesting. Dolly Parton is transitioning here herself, and this is new ground for Jane Fonda. This is new ground for Dolly Parton. This is her first time in the acting chair, which she goes on to do, and she's actually quite good at it. But for a first time, this is a large role that was handed to her. This wasn't just a very. Normally, you would think that would get you kind of a supporting role, like, hey, look who's in the movie. We'll sell a few extra tickets, and their sixth or seventh build. But she has to carry her own with Jane Fonda, who's a big name at the time, and Lily Tomlin, who I think is grossly underappreciated. She's just so funny, and she was just one of the funniest people in the world at the time. And you were not outmatched. And it's just amazing that she did such a good job to hold her own. And an unlikely trio, but a really satisfying trio.
But the stories with Dolly in her first time, I love these because it just speaks to her naivete of her going in and thinking it's like a play and she had to memorize every person's line, and she did. And then she causes Tomlin and Fonda to just laugh out loud laughing because she's like, wait, this doesn't happen until Act 3. Why are we shooting this now? Why are we doing this now? Don't you shoot movies in order? And they're all just like, oh, this is adorable.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's Dolly Parton. I mean, that's what she does, adorable. So, I mean, yes. Overachieves and is adorable at the same time. So,
there's some other interesting historical context here about kind of before the film. There was a woman by the name of Karen Nussbaum who began an organization called 9 to 5, the National Association of Working Women, in 1973. And the context is that basically you had a lot of women entering the workforce because of the Vietnam War. We saw in the 70s, about 12 million women went into the workforce, whereas previously there had been women there, but not as much. And they began kind of sharing these stories about their terrible bosses and about these the casual chauvinism at play in the workplace. And that kind of was the the culminating event for this film and this kind of outlet slash a group of people who wanted to see more of this stuff and wanted to see them represented on the screen.
Yeah, that's a very interesting historical context to think about that. I'm glad you brought up the Vietnam War as a part of what caused that surge into the workforce. But then as it's wrapping up, everybody might have thought, like in World War II, things just went back. This time it didn't go back, and probably for the better, probably. And and it's one of those things where, unfortunately, it led to this conflict that you're seeing here. And if you talk to even women from this generation for very long, I feel like they all have a story or two where you sit there and you go like, I'm sorry that happened. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I just feel like as soon as you actually get to know anybody who is still female in the workforce, they do have these stories. They're not quite as forward as like, I'm going to jump on you physically, and salivating. Like, I mean, I think that behavior is frowned upon, but it's still there. It's just guised more.
We gotta use stronger language. That behavior is frowned upon, ladies and gentlemen, not we think. You do not pounce on your female or male secretary.
Yeah.
This is a Retro Movie Roundtable PSA. But yeah, Jane Fonda researched, like she did her homework here, and she was interviewing women who acted as secretaries. That term has fallen out of favor. Now it's administrative assistant. But just for clarification, they're secretaries in this movie. So she was interviewing them, and a lot of the things that make it into this film, they're played up for comedy reasons, but they're stories from these women. I certainly don't have some of the aspects, but I've been threatened to be fired for sharing my salary before. I was very young. I'd started my first job, and just a friend of mine asked how much I made, and I was in the store. I said, I make $6 an hour, which was great back in 1992. But yeah, and the manager said, I could fire you for that. So some of these stories, and she was also talking to divorced women who'd had to re-enter the workforce because divorce rates had gone up in the 70s. So not only from the war, but also these divorced or single women are now entering the workforce where it hadn't traditionally been at high rates. So she's going through that as well to get the other side of how Judy felt, how lonely, or just you go from you're a homemaker into a brand new world. So what's that like?
Violet's a single mom as well. Like she's
a widower.
Yep, she's fixing a garage. She's got to do it all. She seems like she's got it all together, but we also see moments of just like it is really hard, It's like a duck on water. Like those feet are kicking really, really hard. And she's thriving at work. She's really good at what she does, but it's only through working very, very hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and you do find out that these administrative assistants, it's kind of a theme. They really know everything that's going on in the office. They pick things up and they learn, and that's been my experience in the workforce as well. They start really knowing how to do other people's jobs just almost through osmosis, just being in and out of it every single day, and they start learning the accounts, learning the names, and how to work the systems. So when they're talking about Lily Tomlin's character, Violet, and she knows more than anyone else in the company, they're probably right.
Some people felt like the second half of this movie, some critics said that the first part was so smart and sophisticated while we're talking about like it was cool and dark and edgy and had all these topical issues about harassment in the workplace, unequal pay. But then they said that it finished off feeling farcical like a sitcom, and that cheapened it. The original script was going to be darker, and we were actually going to try and murder the boss, and then that failed and turned into a kidnapping plot. I think this accidental confusion of thinking they ended up doing the murder is way funnier, personally. Like,
agreed.
Like watching Lily Tomlin think, "Oh no, I killed him." That devolves into, I mean, you get 15 solid minutes of humor out of them thinking that's the scenario. You as the audience knows, but you watch the actors and they don't know. And I think that's always really funny when you can give that audience some information that the characters don't have, but then the characters do things in ways that are very, very funny that debatably make the situation much, much worse for themselves and funny, but you as the viewer know. And it's just, that's really cool writing, in my opinion. So I don't agree with that. I don't know, DJ, did you feel like it was uneven at all?
No, I think it's perfect the way it is, quite honestly. I really appreciate the comedy aspect of it that brings light to, the darkness of some really, heavy issues, right? We're talking about sexism, we're talking about chauvinism, we're talking about racism, we're talking about patriarchy. Like, a little bit of sugar helps the medicine go down,
Yes.
Yeah. Blazing Saddles, certainly.
You're right. I think that just the comedy was the right package for this message at that time. And clearly the box office took this and it was a massive success. I'm just interested how it resonated so strongly with people at the time. I have a hard time seeing comedy. I've said this a couple times this year, but it's interesting when you go back and you sit there and go, wow, this was a thought-provoking comedy that put its finger on the pulse of what was going on at the time, but people showed up and they paid for it. And it made 10 times what it cost to make this movie. I don't see comedies having that kind of power and draw anymore.
Well, that $103 million figure you mentioned earlier, that's really important because this is the first ever female-driven vehicle to gross over $100 million. And it's interesting to me that Jane Fonda is involved because, mentioning the Vietnam War, there's a lot of people that had backlash to Jane Fonda. She's called Hanoi Jane, and for all of her anti-war efforts. So that makes it even more striking to me that it resonated this well and it was that popular, because Jane Fonda was still polarizing from this point.
There's 2 points I want to pick up on what you're putting down right now, Chad. So first, this was also one of the first movies ever set in the corporate world looking at clerical workers.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it was an untapped group of audience people, so never before seen, as well as the Vietnam connection. So Jane Fonda knew Karen Nussbaum, the lady I mentioned earlier, and they were friends, and they used to get together for anti-war protests and kind of planning things like that. And it was through just some kind of casual conversation that Karen was telling Jane about her experience working in these kinds of places. And Jane was like, I want to help you do something. And the only way I know to do that is to make a movie. So let's do it.
That's cool.
That is cool. Clearly the message got out and I think it was appreciated, but it has aged very well. And that's the other thing of it's a message that still stands to be heard of treat people well and to treat them with dignity and like a human. And we still struggle with that. It's also funny how it can be so insightful, but also be bad funny.
Yeah. I feel like we're still seeing the influence here. I think of Horrible Bosses from modern times and Office Space. I clearly think there was influence there as well. So
The Devil Wears Prada.
yes, absolutely.
I mentioned it earlier, but Working Girl, an Oscar-nominated movie, Mike Nichols movie, that's a really good movie. I don't know that you get that drama without this movie. That's 8 years later after this movie.
Yeah. This biting satire. I know that Judd Apatow has said he was influenced by this movie. Seth Rogen said he was influenced by this movie. So it's far-reaching as far as what it managed to do, not just in its time, but one of the questions that we usually ask is, does it hold up? I don't think all the animated graphics really aged that well. There's some of the Snow White Disney things that are fine. It really is reflected in that Disney-esque animation, but the message itself and the influence, I think, is timeless.
I mean, short of Jane Fonda looking like she's Dorothy from Tootsie. I mean, yeah, I think it has aged pretty well. It feels kind of 70s. No, it feels very 70s. It's an 80s movie, but I mean, it still has its foot in the 70s for sure. It still doesn't, the content though, doesn't feel dated though. And honestly, the sensibility and the humor must have been quite striking for the time, because we grew up, we had like Family Guy and stuff like that. These daydream, like when they get together for the first time and they start sharing their stories of what they would want to do to their boss, the movie takes an abrupt, sharp turn. It has been relatively serious, and there's an enormous change in tone as they go into these daydream situations. And yeah, they do change the filter on those. They make like Jane Fonda's have like this really cold blue wash kind of thing, and they also give like Dolly Parton's kind of a Western theme, and obviously Violet had the Snow White overlap parody component to it. So they're breaking the box and they're going out of their world that they're in and tapping into all these other worlds and creating these mental images. And I was sitting there thinking, like, this may have, I've not heard him say this, but honestly, it feels like what Seth MacFarlane does on Family Guy and has become very successful doing, of just simply having characters say, imagine this, and then depicting it and putting a lot of effort into depicting it, because there's a lot of humor in doing that. And this movie did that decades before he did.
I love Ronald Reagan's response to that scene. He loved this movie, but he's like, why'd they have to use marijuana? Why couldn't they just be drunk? So he was, war on drugs, Ronald Reagan, that's his thing. So he was very upset at the Mary Jane in this movie. The marijuana, as Dolly Parton would say.
Yeah. The movie takes a couple of abrupt turns, and that was one of them. The other one is, like, once they think that they have murdered him, that takes another one of those abrupt turns, and then another abrupt turn during the kidnapping. So most movies kind of have like this 3-act kind of structure, but this one is it fair to say this one kind of has more acts than kind of that 3-act format?
I don't know. I'm thinking now. I could see it as 2 acts possibly, side A and a side B. What do you think, Chad?
I'm going with 3 as far as the introduction to the workforce, the planning to kill the boss, and then the attempts to remediate everything that they just did.
But it turns into a kidnapping at that point, though.
It does. It turns into...
And then they have to run the office for, like I said, like, I don't know.
It just
5 acts.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like there's more pages turned in this, and it's not that long of a movie either. It doesn't overstay its welcome.
It has a good pace. Yeah.
You're like the inspector in Knives Out. There's inside of the donut hole is another donut hole. Yes, I mentioned it in the plot summary, but it just reminds me of growing up watching I Love Lucy episodes where she inevitably made things worse while she was trying to make it better. And so I'm just enjoying, like, what are you going to screw up next? But it was nice to see them improving the office and a lot of things that some companies are implementing now as far as daycares and personal items. I've worked in an office that would not let you have personal items on your desk. They felt they distracted you. I left that place. But yeah, we're still seeing these kind of ignorant policies in workplaces today, and other workplaces trying to make a better cube life, I guess, for you.
No, that's a good point. DJ just mentioned during the Great Resignation, like, we are at the precipice of asking people. We sent people home for 2 years, and they were responsible adults. They got their work done. Many companies had increased productivity, and we are going to have to take a long look in the mirror and say, did we just go back to the way things were? Like, are there parts of this that we want to take with us? Obviously, we were forced into that, but is there a lesson to be learned here about what we want to do? And you're right. This movie calls into strong question about if you treat your employees not as if they're the scum of the earth and they're all looking to just slack off, but if you actually treat them with dignity and give them autonomy and treat them well and let them do their jobs, and wouldn't you believe it, professional adults actually deliver good results. And this movie kind of makes a statement on that. So it's interesting. We may still have more to learn from this movie yet.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to pick that up right there, Russell, because we're at a slight disadvantage tonight because they actually just came out with a documentary, still working 9 to 5, 40 years later, with the cast they brought back together and talking about the modern workplace and issues. I think it's in the South by Southwest film competition. So it's not out yet. We'll have to watch that and maybe revisit this again once it's out.
That's cool, though.
I'll keep my eyes peeled for that. That is interesting. I think it's a timely question that the entire workforce is going to be asking themselves. What do you think about what made this trio, this unlikely trio, as I mentioned earlier, work? You have Lily Tomlin, who's very sarcastic, very, I would say edgy, kind of like, doesn't play by the rules. And then again, this is not Jane Fonda's thing. Like, you don't think we need someone, we're going for yucks here, let's get Jane Fonda. And then conversely, Dolly Parton, it's easy to visualize this as a success now, but at the time, she's a country musician. She had been kind of doing some crossover into the pop world as well at this point. But to cross over into movies, they initially kind of just did this like she'll bring us the South, which sounds so cheap, and because what she delivers is far greater than just delivering people from the southeastern United States into the movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
What is it why does that trio work so well?
I think when you get caricatures, like we can relate to Judy when we get this backstory. We don't have as much backstory with the others, but we see Judy and we feel for her because she's the fish out of water. She's thrown into a brand new world. So we're really supposed to experience this through her and sympathize with her. She's excited for this new world, and she's slowly turned on to the fact, oh, this is not great. This is dog eat dog. I'm watching people be fired, being treated unfairly. They won't discuss my pay. And just that dream and hopes just being drained out of her. So I think Jane Fonda was kind of the good straight man here, and straight woman. I'm going to use that term interchangeably, but Lily Tomlin is, you see this character pop up in so many tropes of just this wisecracking, sarcastic, almost downtrodden, especially in office comedies. There's this person that's just been there for long enough that they know enough to really hate everything and game the system. So she's great in that supervisor role. And then you have Dolly Parton. I think you need that sweet but can defend herself, hold their own character. So having that combination of personalities, they're all so different, but you can sympathize and laugh along with Lily Tomlin, or Dolly Parton's, her one-liners are just great. If you grow up south or west, something like that, all of the things she can say, I've outrun swifter men than you, and none of them have caught me yet. Things like that, or shooting him and turning him from a rooster to a hen in one shot. You get that countryism that's just great.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a fiery nature in her that the other two don't necessarily have. And
yeah.
So it's interesting. So you have the straight man, you have straight lady, and you have the sarcasm, and then I guess you have the one who's actually, I carry a gun in my purse.
Yeah, but she only shot it once by accident.
I was going to say, for me, I think one thing that I identify with most is just the three kind of oddball people that you wouldn't expect to be friends, who become friends because of this really oppressive workplace. And I think back to like my career and all the people I've met and my friends now that I still keep in contact with, our currency for kind of social exchange was that we were dealing with on a daily basis at the office. And that's what, kind of bonded us together. And so I think seeing other people to go through that on the screen, you have that kind of that empathy towards that situation that it just makes you love them even more.
That's a very good point. The situation is galvanizing unexpected people together, which is realistic in that regard. There are so many interesting things. It's amazing how overwhelming the Dolly Parton component is when you look up stories from this. Maybe it's just because she's a great interview, and it's just so many things that came out because of this, because of her on this. As Chad mentioned, that the first time stories are very interesting. Thought it was interesting that the husband character that she has to play on screen was a friend of hers, and it was hard enough to kiss somebody on screen, much less somebody else's husband who's your friend. And they had to shoot a film on top of that with all the cameras and crew and all the people looking on, and that was new ground for Dolly Parton. Again, these are things that actors and actresses just kind of do, and they don't think anything of it, but this is new ground for her. But it was through Jane Fonda and through Lily Tomlin and the people around her, they got behind her. Someone said that Dolly has a very good, quick wit and self-deprecating humor, and people want to help her and get behind her. And you mentioned it earlier, like protect her through this and to really go to bat for her. She had a great experience, but it was largely because of that humor that she actually has in real life, and that enters into the character. Because she was even saying, like, I had to pick a role that there was enough of me within, because I'm not some great actress or whatever. Again, she's a very self-deprecating person that you sit there and go like, no, you are a great actress, Dolly Parton. I believe in you. You should have this role. And you like, you do see that charm that she has, kind of like, it's like, oh, you're doing it now. I see it.
Her quick response of, it takes a lot of money to look this cheap. That comes to mind. She's great. She's very quick-witted.
That was another interesting thing. She has a very reclusive husband, and he sometimes gets misphotographed. Like, people will be photographed standing next to him and like, it's Dolly Parton with her reclusive husband. And it's like, that's not him. And so he never appears in public, but he did come into the studio with her because this is a big moment for her. And Jane Fonda saw him coming in and she said, whoa, look at that handsome man. I call him, he's mine. And Lily Tomlin also kind of felt that was a handsome looking dude. And then after a few minutes of going on, Dolly Parton mentioned that's her husband. And the other actresses were really embarrassed. So that's another one of those funny Dolly Parton stories from this.
I kind of question Lily Tomlin's taste in men, though, because she picked Dabney Coleman for Mr. Hart after seeing him in Fernwood Tonight, and she said there's something sexy about him. So I don't know. I'm not picking up on that. Different strokes for different folks, but Dabney Coleman, I don't know.
He's so good at playing this character, though. So
yes.
I can't speak to whether he can turn on the charm off screen in other roles or whatever, but certainly in this role, he's a very good bad boss.
He is cartoonish, yes.
They looked at Gregory Peck and Charlton Heston as the role of Tensworthy, the guy who comes in at the end. Those would have been really fun picks as well, but it's interesting that Sterling Hayden, we covered him on Asphalt Jungle as a young man. So fun callback to an earlier episode that we had done. He's definitely channeling the Colonel Sanders in this movie.
Yes.
That was exactly what I wrote. Colonel Sanders has arrived. Except he forgot to memorize any of his lines. He could have gone to the Dolly Parton school. You see him looking around, and his eyes are darting back and forth, trying to find his cue cards, because he couldn't remember any of his lines. All, 12 of them.
But Dabney Coleman makes an impression here. He gets a lot of roles after this of just playing a jerk, which, that serves you well. He's so good at it.
Yeah.
Lily Tomlin and Dolly Parton, had they been unavailable, and they were early choices, as I mentioned, they looked at Jane Fonda's backup castings to be with her was Carol Burnett and Anne Margaret. And Anne Margaret obviously would be Dorothy, and Carol Burnett would have been Violet. Carol Burnett's funny, but once I've seen Lily Tomlin in this, I sit there and go like, no, I don't want to make that change at all. And Anne Margaret, I love, but again, you've done the casting job right when even good alternative castings, you sit there and you strongly shake your head and go like, no.
I don't know that I'm familiar with Anne Margaret. What has she been in?
Oh, lots of things. I mean, she's the woman in Grumpy Old Men for at the other end of her career. She's in Bye Bye Birdie. She's in Elvis movies. She's in Tommy, like the Who's so she can sing. That's a big time person from probably a little bit before this era. So she would have been, I'm assuming she's a little bit older than Dolly Parton, but certainly capable of playing the role.
Okay.
But I mean, these are good ideas. Like I said, when you cast is so good, the other good ideas just make you shake your head and go, no.
Yes.
Yeah, thank goodness The Incredible Shrinking Woman, which Tomlin was in and tied up her filming, let her go and do this movie. They delayed filming.
It's worth it. They, like I said, they're Lily Tomlin, I think, is underrated, and it's cool to cover a movie of hers and come back. I actually really appreciate some of the things that she would do on Saturday Night Live. My parents would frequently refer to, she had work on a TV show called Laugh-In, and she just was so funny. Writing and making this, again, this was a very Jane Fonda type of vehicle. She goes and gets Colin Higgins to come to the board to direct and rewrite the script, and part of his job was to make room for all three in the script. and it was very, very Jane Fonda driven before. So it's interesting, once they get Dolly Parton and Lily Tomlin on board, they have to kind of rebalance the scales. And I'm really glad they did, because no knock to Jane Fonda, she clearly is the reason this movie exists. But if there is a weakest of the three links, I think it's her, because she, like we mentioned it, she's the straight man.
Mm-hmm.
DJ, how did you think the direction of this movie was in your mind, like going into these daydream visual representations, just the visual style of the movie?
Like I said, I enjoyed it. I think it's a nice kind of break from reality and kind of softens it a bit. I'm more so interested in the kind of the other politics behind it. So we mentioned Colin Higgins. There's also Patricia Resnick, who also worked on the screenplay. She was a rising star in the community, and I think Fonda had sought her out and brought her on board because she was interested in it. And this was after Fonda had conducted all these interviews with working women and kind of talked to them about this stuff. In one such encounter with working women, she was in Cleveland, Fonda was, and asked, "Has anyone ever dreamed of killing your boss?" And the room lit up. And those are the stories that became obviously the basis of the film. Patricia Resnick came on board. She had never had a clerical job. So 20th Century Fox placed her in one of their offices to better understand the office dynamics. And Patricia spent time in the office and just took workers to lunch and just got to know them. And there was one woman in particular who was rumored to be sleeping with her boss, and this inspired Dolly Parton's character. Another interesting note here, sexual harassment was not a commonly used term at the time. We know it very well now, but these events that happened to these women we didn't have a word or a phrase for it then. And now we clearly recognize it as such these days. The other interesting thing too is Colin Higgins pushed Resnick out. So Resnick got 9 to 5 basically off of her movie.
There's so much truth that's written into this that you're touching on, DJ, and that's what gives it the authenticity that it needs, but also written really well to turn all of that into humor. Out of pain comes humor, and it's everything's funny when it doesn't happen to you, but on the other hand, if you can relate to that pain and then you're brought in on the joke, there's something powerful there, and that I believe is why it's landed on the AFI Top 100. What you're talking about there, it's still resonating with so many people, and I'm glad you mentioned that it just activated another part of the workforce and turned the attention to people who were underappreciated and made them hero. I mean, Jane Fonda at one point said, "You can run a business without a boss, but you can't run it without a secretary." Yeah. That was an insightful comment, and this strongly reflects that. Like you mentioned, Chad, you become so ingrained into what's going on, you see the different layers, but they don't always tell their boss what's going through their minds. There's an intimidation factor. There's not showing your old card factor. But when you're in the trenches and you're the link between the top and where the rubber meets the road, you do see all this stuff. And this movie made strong appreciation of those people. It's interesting to see the visual representation that the director takes of this movie. My first thought was like, dude, this is a bland office. It is all tan, beige, and like brown. It's drab, but that was an intentional thing that they did. It wasn't just a typical 70s cube farm. They made a point out of that later by showing how vibrant the office looked, and they did bring in 70s colors, but there did seem to be a more lively nature of it. You see people who are handicapped coming in. You see accommodations being made. You see a more diverse work staff being made. It's a lively room. People are talking to each other. The alcoholic woman who's a very funny, like, I think the TV show The Office has the character
9 to 5. Her name is Margaret, and I love Margaret, the drunk lush.
Atta girl.
The
Meredith.
People of color.
Yes, Meredith. Yes, I think the character Meredith from The Office is directly channeled from this character Margaret.
Shout out to Maria Delgado, one of the few people of color in the film.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you've also got the male guy who's just kind of raging immediately. I wanted more of him, Ray Vitte. He plays Eddie. He's just like, I'm going to be CEO, but he can't get out of the mailroom.
They keep hiring new people.
Man, lady, you're going to hate this place.
Right.
That is a bad sign in your first week reviews. Yeah,
I've had that at other jobs. I'm leaving, but I'm going to train you. Well, why are you leaving? You'll find out.
Yeah. So Colin Higgins said that Jane Fonda was actually great to work with, and that she was an encouraging producer who allowed him to push back on the writing and the production while the script was being rewritten. And he did work with Patricia Resnick, and I did not know about her getting pushed out as much. That's a little bit unfortunate, as you were mentioning, DJ. But the other cast members seem to say nice things about him. Dolly Parton said he was a very nice, low-key, quiet guy, not one of those nightmare directors. And she says, I don't know what I would have done if I had had one of those mean directors on her first film, like William Friedkin or Stanley Kubrick, who have terrorized their cast members in some of the previous episodes that we've covered, like, movies like on The Exorcist or The Shining. But here, there was a camaraderie amongst the people there. It's not to say that there weren't tensions from time to time, because when you work with 3 stars and they're coming at things from different perspectives, there's going to be conflicts that arise, and everybody was invested in what they're doing. But they were totally professional, and they were great fun to work with, Colin Higgins said. And he just wished everything would be as easy as it was here at 9 to 5. And Dolly Parton as well had a good experience here for her first time. And it's unfortunate, as her second recording comes in, a movie with Burt Reynolds there, it just doesn't go as well for her there. So that's Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. Sorry for the language, that's the title of the movie. But it's funny, the 2 worlds that she's in here. This takes her off of a very happy introduction to the film career. And it's not too much longer after this that Dolly Parton has a tough time with another production, a tough time in life. But she lands on her feet, as she always does. She's resilient. She gets back. She delivers good acting performances after this. But it seems like there's a lot of good vibes about working together here throughout this process. This movie appears to be set in Los Angeles during the open credits and titles of songs, but it's mostly composed of shots from downtown San Francisco. I thought that was an interesting moment. They do show little moments of like San Francisco things on the buses and stuff around town. It's perhaps cleverly unanchored. I felt like they didn't anchor themselves to a region very well. I don't know if that was an intentional purpose to say that this is a problem everywhere, but I was kind of sitting there thinking, like, does this movie want to be in New York, where things are a little maybe more rigid and more structured than like LA, which even has an office culture, West Coast office culture being a little more casual perhaps. And so to go right to the core of it, to take the essence of where it was, and to go to New York. Maybe it's just my bias for New York over Los Angeles, but do you guys want this movie set more strongly and make the location more of a character, or is that an intentional decision to just say this is a problem with big cities everywhere?
So honestly, I'm 34 years old, and let's say I saw this when I was 5 or 6. I always thought it was New York City until I did my deep dive recently into this.
Oh man, you guys are like the characters from Coming to America with so many choices. New York or Los Angeles? No, I always assumed this was Midwestern. Somewhere in the Midwest setting, just because of Dolly Parton's presence. Now, I know people are transient, they can move, but that strong of an accent and personality and nobody really acknowledging it kind of indicated, okay, she's in an area where this might be more prevalent. It's not that unusual.
You're right. It could have been Houston. But I mean, her husband, I guess, had come out to Los Angeles to make it in the music. Oh, see, San Francisco. See, I ruined it. Yeah, I was gonna say he's in Los Angeles to make it in the music business. I'm sitting there going like, nope, that still doesn't work. So, you're right. People do move. They move.
There are more than 2 cities in America. We can set them.
Chad wants this in Chicago or Texas or somewhere else. But yeah, I just found myself sitting there going like, go all the way. Go for Manhattan and go for the stodgy, most corporate, most exaggerated, stiff cube farm that you can possibly imagine. So
that's fair.
What do you feel like the things that do date this movie? Because we keep talking about how timeless it is. DJ, are there things that make you sit there and go like, this is definitely a product of its time?
I mean, Dolly Parton's cone boobies, for one. The cars, the interior design, the fashion. Yeah, we could date this pretty easily. It's dateable. We can clock it.
Yeah, Russell already took his shot at 70s office furniture. You don't apparently like the orange scheme. So, that can date the movies. The learning to work the copier, that's still funny, but copiers are not as ginormous as that anymore. It's still complex, and it's still one of the workplace memories that's just burned into my brain of training people to use the copier.
Peter, Samir, and Michael Bolton are taking that printer out to the field and hitting it with a baseball bat, and Jane Fonda's ready to join them, I'm sure.
Paper jam? There's no paper jam.
PC load letter?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess printers do continue to frustrate us to this day. The other things that I thought were interesting were just glimpses of the hospital world. I thought it was funny when, like, whoa, you're a lady doctor? So that was another one of those jokes that at the time probably would have hit harder than today, where obviously there are far more female doctors today.
Yeah. And that cop was super lax about everything.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh, you're both sick and there's nothing suspicious about this at all, and I'm getting yelled at by this doctor? Yeah, it's fine. Then she practically runs over his foot on the way out.
What did you think about the exuberant palatial palace that Dabney Coleman's terrible boss character has?
I loved it. I thought it was, you want the jerk to kind of have this opulence and this ridiculous house just to make his downfall even better, at least to me, just to show he's a scumbag. He's profiting. He's taking stuff off the side from his business. So I like the home. I like the gigantic bedroom, everything in it.
I think you made a good point that he is skimming money off the side or whatever, because I mean, my first thought was like, he doesn't run the company. He's a person that's like he's like a high up manager. Like, he's not even on the top floor. Like, this is a lot. This is overdoing it. And as you pointed out, there's a reason for that.
How does Al Bundy have a 3-story home when he sells shoes? Yes, yeah, it could be like that.
Yes, or the friend's apartment.
I was gonna say that
Yeah.
too. So that the mansion is a Bel Air home, and I think it belonged to the Candler family, publishers of the Los Angeles Times.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, they rented it out.
Yeah, the indignant position that he ends up being in, juxtaposed with his opulent palace, is pretty funny. So the fact that he's stuck in these ridiculous gym shorts and has like these S&M like wrist straps that have chains on them that the push of a garage door button, which is so fitting that we saw Violet working on a garage door because she puts that knowledge to good use. and then he ends up just swinging up and down like a piñata up there, which is so good. Funny that I was actually like worried for Dolly Parton again. That maybe it's just because she's such a sweetheart. Like, he's coming behind her, like in the mirror, like, and before she hits the button, and I was sitting there going like, oh no, this isn't that kind of movie. And then they quickly righted the ship.
S&M or M&M's?
Yes.
That was also a very rewarding scene, to be honest with you. Having her ex-husband overlap with her and kind of rubbing it in her face initially by like, yeah, I'm going to go off with this other lady. And then she leaves him high and dry and he comes crawling back with his tail tucked between his legs. And I like that he's seemingly way out of his league and like, I had no idea.
And what position, what occupation was the person that he ran away with?
I don't remember.
I think it was his secretary, wasn't it?
That's correct. That is correct.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
and his name is Dick.
Yes. Yes, it is. And I think that's deliberate.
That was it.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
We did talk about how the animation goes into this, DJ. I detect that this is one of your favorite aspects of this. It's interesting that this is like pulling in all those Disney components, because it's a pretty direct translation of like Snow White and Bambi and Robin Hood, and having these talking creatures drawn into there. They towed the line as close as you can without getting in trouble from Disney.
And interestingly enough, I think Disney owns the rights to the film now, so
They do, yeah.
it all came back to Disney in the end.
Everything does.
So the Disney overlords are sitting there going like, they made fun of us. Buy
Buy them. Don't let Walt hear about this.
Put it in the vault.
We would be remiss if we didn't mention that this is obviously awarded for its music as well. And Dolly Parton's opening theme in 9 to 5, it's actually a pretty good song.
Yeah, certified platinum.
So yeah, Dolly accepted the role with the condition that she would write the song, right, and sing the theme song.
Mhm.
And then that trend continued for most of her movies during this period, with the exception of Steel Magnolias.
Yep. Yeah. I wish they'd used her song in Steel Magnolias. Good movie, sad movie. But
I know. The other fun thing too is the clicking you hear in the song is her acrylic fingernails.
yeah, she had a big thing of she calls them falsies, I think.
Falsies, yep.
Yeah, you need falsies to make that sound. You can't use real fingernails to do it. So yeah, it sounds like a typewriter. And I thought the rest of the score, it was fitting. I've mentioned some sitcoms, but Charles Fox, he does the scores for Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. So we've got sitcom influence in how we're moving the action along.
I'd be curious to see this, but in 2009 they released a musical version on Broadway.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if the rest of the music can hold water with the theme here, but this does seem like content that is ripe and would do really good for Broadway. And if I get a chance to see that, I would definitely like to see this in Broadway.
I believe Allison Janney was the character of Violet. And I don't know that they're still performing the musical. It may not be circulating currently.
Well, I hope I can see an off-Broadway revival somehow. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's one of those local productions, I'm curious because it feels like it has potential for that. In an era where the theater steals from theater and theater steals from the theater constantly. The two are, I don't know, it's like DC and Marvel. As soon as somebody does something good, it's like, we need to do that.
What you can be funny now? Call Zack Snyder. Have him redo an entire movie.
All right.
I was going to say one more note about the song. Interestingly enough, Sheena Easton's song 9 to 5 came out the exact same year over in the UK. And when it finally made it to the US the year afterwards, they changed the name to The Morning Train to avoid confusion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's unfortunate timing on her part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not mention this when we were talking about this. I criticized earlier Jane Fonda's look, but in all that homework that she did, that also came through with what she was wearing. That really conservative, big hair, big glasses, overdoing it to the max. Kind of not even sure what I'm entering into the workforce. As you mentioned, she interviewed a lot of women who had to go back to work, and that uncomfortable, like, I don't know how to dress or how to do this. I actually kind of reached through at the wardrobe level because my first thought was just like, oh, this is not good. Like, this makes you look 30 years older. Like, there's something unprofessional about it. It's like, it looks like you'll never be able to use a computer. Like, it looks like you're gonna have a hard time with a copy machine. But there's interesting that there's some truth within that and its own self. And also, Dolly Parton still gets to kind of overdo it a little bit. I thought she had a pretty good comment herself. She says, people ask me all the time, who does your hair, or how long does it take to get your hair that way? And she goes, I don't know, I wasn't there when they did it.
Well, if you like Dolly Parton's wardrobe, you can go down to Dollywood right now, and it's in the museum. She bought out her entire wardrobe.
I'm confused by how often actresses just get some of their wardrobe, and then other times you have to buy it. That's a strange comment to me. Who else is using that?
Meanwhile, Lily Tomlin just stole the rat poison box.
Yes. Well, also, in addition to buying her wardrobe, she reused it a few times in films. In particular, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, she wears the dress in which she, in the imaginary death scene where she hogties Frank up, and it's in the song A Little Old Bitty Pissant Country Place.
Yep.
In that movie.
Also by Colin Higgins.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. They do prop Dolly up a lot and shoot her at angles and stuff to There's an 8-inch difference between Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda, and Dolly Parton's short. So,
Yeah.
she's some of that big hair that she always has to wear, I think, is designed to give her not just volume of her hair at the time, but just height.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting. They don't get any of the three of them don't come together until later in the movie. Like, they don't go to the bar until much later.
Yeah, there's resistance to Dolly's character until you find out that the boss has been making it up. You've got to go through that horrible line of, oh, how did this rumor get started? Well, Mr. Hart told us.
Yeah. She's not dressing that provocatively, but I was kind of sitting there wondering. I was like, oh, I don't know how that happened, that the whole office came to feel that way. But we didn't mention, though, how square Roz is as a character. This character is infuriating, the little tattletale, and an adult tattletale, and somehow they design her character to be just so dislikable. And sending her off to France on a lark to learn French needlessly is not adequate. I wanted something worse for her character.
Oh man, I've been in offices where that character exists, or an office that promotes that kind of culture of, it's almost like Russian propaganda. Tell on your neighbor, so you are supporting the company culture. If they've uttered something out of line, and I had to be very, very careful. Little tiny things I'd say in frustration would get back to my boss, and I'd have a meeting about my attitude. It's like, can I not be frustrated? So it really was a check the stalls kind of environment. And Roz, to your point, she is infuriating. I'm with you. Send her to Botswana.
Yeah. My first thought was like, I'm taking you to Brazil with me. My first thought was like, that's not bad enough for the boss either. Like, I feel like Roz needs to come with the boss, like you said, to like, I'm going up to like Greenland, like at the very top, like near the Arctic Circle.
Yes.
I'm going on a mission to Antarctica, and I want you to come with me.
The Thing 2.
All right. Do you guys want to hand out some superlatives?
Love to.
Let's do it.
Okay. MVP, DJ.
I'm gonna have to go with Dolly Parton on this one. She's only a gay icon.
Is that because of how done up she is?
No, it's totally like hyper feminization, but it's also like her self-deprecating humor and how she kind of openly acknowledges how done up she is, and that kind of persona, and also like, yeah, just her funny wit.
Yeah,
because I knew she was like, I knew like drag queens like to sing Dolly Parton as a thing, but I wasn't sure why. Yeah. Okay. So it's just the amount. It's like you said. It's the amount of makeup and self-deprecating lends itself to the drag world.
Yeah. She's lost Dolly Parton lookalike contests before.
That's funny. I remember when we did a Charlie Chaplin movie in the circus. He came in third place in the Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest as well.
Yeah.
Third. All right. So, Chad, what about you? Who's your MVP?
I went with Lily Tomlin. We mentioned this movie changed directions because of hiring her, and her wit's just front and center. She claims she only ad-libbed one line. Absolutely no one believes her. These are just, if you're familiar with her work, the style and the jokes are very Lily Tomlin-esque, and they just bring this bite and a smile at the same time.
Yeah, and it's odd that I'm not picking Jane Fonda. I feel like I should, because this movie doesn't exist with her, and she put a lot of hard work into it. But having said all of that, Dolly Parton's just too impressive as a first timer. She holds her own, and there's just this infectious energy, and even when scenes aren't funny, she puts a smile on her face. I think the tone of this movie being as bright as it is largely comes from Dolly Parton. I fully understand that Fonda led to the structure of how it was made, and I do think you're right, Chad. I think Lily's brings the voice of like how the snarky, satirical kind of humor of all of this comes together so well. So really, I guess you could pick any of the three of them, but somehow I think Dolly Parton's what probably will keep me coming back to it. Like, there's just, it set the tone.
She's certainly the enduring draw. Like, you're not going to go back, you're unlikely to go back and say, oh, Jane Fonda, or even now Lily Tomlin. It's, oh, Dolly Parton. She's just transcended into this icon.
Yeah. Now, Best Supporting Actor, of which there are many good ones to choose from in this. DJ.
I'm gonna go with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin as a unit.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. And Chad, what about you? What do you think the best supporting is?
I'm going to complete the trio. I couldn't leave out Dolly Parton. For all the reasons you've mentioned. She's just so charming, and it's absolutely stunning. This was her first role, and she did so well.
Well, I'm going to be just different for the sake of being different than and Dabney Coleman needs some attention here because he is so good at being a terrible boss. I mean, he's swimming in terrible. I mean,
Yes.
Every single one of those lines is great. And when the carpet's pulled out from under him, he's also really good at being mad and like being humiliated and really playing up the humor of the situation of when you're knocked off the top of the mountain. Those are really great moments. I also like that he doesn't really like his wife very much. That was a very funny gag of just like, you think I'm gonna go on a boat with you for 4 weeks? Like spit take.
He is the 80s Colin Farrell.
I think he's even funnier than Colin Farrell than Horrible Bosses. I just really, yeah. I think that his performance here does lead heavily to Horrible Bosses, as you pointed out, Chad. I think there's some Kevin Spacey from that movie that's channeling this as well too. So,
oh yeah.
Hidden Gem, DJ.
I'm gonna go with Peggy Pope as Margaret.
Yeah.
Atta girl.
Atta girl. I also like the I got my life back on track due to the substance abuse program that you helped put me into.
Yeah. Who are you? The drunk Lush.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a term that I feel like has fallen out of favor. It's just not around as much, calling people a lush. So, but yeah, she was my pick too. The Atta girl lines as each woman walked out of the office. You'd expect diminishing returns because it's the same joke. It worked. It kept working every single time.
Ray Vitte is going to be my pick here from the mailroom. He's brief, but it's good. I like them.
Yeah.
And shout out to the doctor too. That was the doctor talk where you're like doing this who's on first, like kind of talking past where you think that they're saying thing. That's a good scene too.
Will he make it? Oh no, he's dead.
just the casual name. That was very good too. And the cop was good too. Like in being in a position of authority, but then being yelled at by like this like, who's sick? Both of them? They're both sick? Yes. Very sick. And I need to get to the hospital. Furthermore, why are you slowing me down? That was a great scene. So there were so many good little parts in this. And even his wife of just coming home.
Yeah, I know you were the one that sent me flowers.
You would never believe the exercise program he's gotten into. Best shot.
Nope, recast. Yep.
So, recast. This was difficult, and I'm going to do something very sacrilegious, but I'm going to recast Dorley Rhodes. I'm going to modernize her and ask that Nicki Minaj take the role.
You made Chad sad.
Yeah. On multiple levels.
Wow, I'm having a hard time picturing that. But I like the bold attempt. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You swung for the fences here.
I did. My gay card's being revoked as we speak.
Chad, recast. If you had to recast somebody, hard to do, who would you put in their place?
I don't know how we have an 80s office comedy and don't have Joan Cusack in here. I checked. She's 18 years old in 1980, so it's a little young.
Yeah,
but,
I was gonna say she didn't have her one year and done run at SNL yet. She hasn't broken through the scene yet.
It's a requirement to me to have an office comedy and Joan Cusack. It just keeps coming up. So put her in. Maria, the girl that was fired for discussing her salary, you could put Joan Cusack in her role and have that be fun.
It would be good. Yeah. I'm going to say that Jane Fonda, all of your hard work in producing and writing and making this come to life is very valued, but I want you to sit down and give your role to Gilda Radner.
More funny women for Russell.
Yes. I think that adding Gilda into this sheepish kind of like coming into the office kind of, we just kind of talked about that character that, not really sure what you're walking into. And I think Gilda Radner would do such a good job of that. And she brings a little bit of sweetness to her too that we don't really see from Jane Fonda as well. Dolly Parton has all of the sweetness locked down for this movie. I think that would play well, and I can assure you she's a very, 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 very funny woman. I think you add her and Lily Tomlin, I think you're going to get even more electricity from the humor department. I don't want to knock Jane Fonda. This just isn't, comedy is just not what she does. So I'm thinking if you bring in a third funny woman for the role, I think you're going to get even more return.
I think if I'm going SNL route, I'd get Jane Curtin because she was so good in Third Rock from the Sun.
Also a valid choice there. So Jane Fonda did a great job.
Yeah.
Best shot, if you had to pick a best shot, DJ.
I'm going to go with the hospital scene when Dorothy and Judy are using the payphone and they see Violet rushing out of the hospital with the body.
Yes.
Oh, I think she's done lost it.
Chad, best shot.
I'm a sucker for doing things on beat and camera tricks. So the metronomes and the opening sequence, they're bobbing to the song 9 to 5. I just thought that was a really enchanting shot. I enjoyed it.
My best shot is going to be, we see a shot of a dead corpse feet on the stretcher in the foreground and a very nervous Violet taking the body out on the gurney in a tight corridor, and there's something very frantic and very funny about that. The physical humors of just what's happening to make that say like I'm nervously pushing something that I shouldn't be pushing, like I don't belong here, but I kind of like she's wearing a doctor's coat. It's hard to convey the sense of not belonging, and that shot does a good job bringing the humor in there. So comedy doesn't always get good credit for the camera work, and this is one of those moments where the moment of humor is elevated through that. I will say there's a technically best cinematic shot where they're at the bar. It's like the camera's just a little above the bar height, and it's a curved counter, and it sweeps around. It's the first time that you see all three of the stars coming together, looking very defeated. It's a dark room. There's a stodginess, again, in the world that they're within. If you were to take a shot of what this movie's about, particularly what brings these characters together, it's that. But I have a hard time not liking the funny shot. So,
yeah.
Best scene, DJ.
I've already said it like 20 times, but the Snow White death scene.
All right. Yeah, you like the callbacks to the friendly animals while cooking up some poison?
I do.
Yeah, that was fun. The birds bringing over the poison to her.
And then laughing.
I like the spoon dissolving Chad. Best scene.
I think for me, it was the hospital scene. The escalation and the constant misunderstandings and just the hijinks that it ensues. And it just all caps off in the most ridiculous manner of stealing a random person's body while pretending to be a doctor. So when you keep layering the joke and building on it, I think the payoff was just tremendous.
That's a very good choice. And I nearly picked that. I did do the right turn where they go into the daydreams of what they would do to their boss if they got a chance. I thought it was so funny to turn it on its head and have Dolly Parton sexually harassing him. Like, hey, hot stuff, get your buns over here. Like, I mean, I think that's a really funny thing. You so seldom see that turned on its head. That was really funny. I mean, hunting down the boss, like in an African safari, I did wonder, I was like, did anybody sit there and kind of go like, ooh, shooting up your office, is that playing differently today at all? I think it was done under the guise of humor enough, but I think it might have helped to just slide that in second so we've established what we're doing. Because it's the one that comes first. So I'm not going to chastise it too much, but I just switched the order of those dream sequences around a little bit. And then, as you mentioned, DJ, the poison and the spoon and all that stuff. The daydream sequence is really, really funny. It does feel really good to see that they had actually, all their policies worked well. So it's not necessarily my favorite scene from a comedic standpoint, but it is one of those things that makes this an insightful movie of like, oh, your company's actually been run really well by these three women. Best wardrobe or makeup moment, DJ.
I really like Dorothy's outfit when we first meet her. She's wearing this white dress with like blue and pink striping and a green bolero sweater. And just in the drab kind of office interior, it really pops.
Nice choice. And Chad.
I think the ridiculous contraption that they created for Mr. Hart that includes that throwback to the garage door opener scene, the hang gliding tether, the chains, whoever designed that is just pure genius.
I have to go with that too. Franklin Hart's getup is hilarious. And I appreciate that even at the end when they did the what happened to him kind of thing, like the freeze frame of just kicking and screaming, like seeing a grown man kicking and screaming, being suspended from the belt, like I'm gonna get you, and like I mean, like
it's so fast that he gets drawn up.
Yeah, I know, and like I like that bing, like the sound effect that goes with it and everything like that. It's campy and of its time in all the right ways, and I made me very happy. It's a very elaborate setup they made, though.
Yes.
Change one thing. If you had to change one thing, Chad, what about you?
So you guys have spent a lot of time praising this scene, and I'm going to feel like Ronald Reagan here. I'm going after the fantasies scene, not because they used marijuana instead of alcohol, but I understand hamming up the fantasies, but I thought the graphics aged really, really poorly, and I think there's a better way of doing it without inserting the weird country western fonts, and it just... I'm okay with the Snow White scene. That was kind of fun, but I think you just do that maybe once. I don't know, but overall that it drug down the quality of the movie for me.
Oh wow. I love it when he's going back and forth like he's like one of those like ducks at like a shooting gallery, like when like bing, like bing, bing, and like shooting left, shooting
that
right,
was
like
fun.
and watching him switch directions. Like again, there was something very cartoonish about that. And I love when real life can feel cartoony. That's a hard thing to achieve.
I don't. So I like Roger Rabbit, but I do not like Mary Poppins when they do this. I generally don't appreciate having cartoon characters with real life characters, and especially with the type of graphics and font choices that they made. It didn't work for me. I think Dolly Parton's was the worst as far as the graphics they put up.
You must be no fan of Space Jam then.
I love early Space Jam. We have to clarify, LeBron's Space Jam should not exist.
Yeah. He got a Razzie for that, by the way.
He deserved it.
So my change one thing is gonna have to be like, I think that anger should be motivating them at the bar. I don't think they need to switch scenes. I don't think they need to be drunk or smoke pot, to be honest with you. So I'm kind of coming from the Ronald Reagan thing of like, you don't have to alter your mind state to actually have this anger. And I feel like it should be done less out of a laugh, ha ha ha, funny humor. I think you should go in angry and then come out laughing, and then through that venting process, you would see this warm camaraderie building together. So to me, they kind of change scene, and I think that raw anger actually rightfully belongs in there, and it should then turn into humor. That anger should be right there in the bar.
I like it.
DJ.
I'm going to throw a stupid soft one, but more songs.
More songs.
More Dolly
More
songs.
Dolly songs. Have her and her husband sing one of those chart-topping songs that he has at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be good. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. It would certainly help the Broadway run. If you said the Broadway run was short-lived, then adding more Dolly songs now would certainly go a long way in padding that, too. So, best quote, a lot of good ones here. DJ.
Don't you tell me what I can and can't be serious about, or what is or isn't me. If I want to play SNS and Eminem and all those other bondage games, or even smoke pot, that's my business.
That is very funny. Not knowing what the S&M thing is, as he's even filled in the gap of what's happened. Like she thinks she's busted, and he's just like, I can't believe it. You're into S&M games, and she's like, yes. What is that?
Yeah. I'm into everything.
All of that. That was so good. It was particularly how square Judy's character is. So great choice. Chad, what's your favorite quote?
I'm a married woman and I'm a married man. That's what makes it so perfect. Just such a sleazeball line.
I also have a Mr. Hart comment. He comes and he's like, Judy, you gotta help me. They're trying to kill me. And she's like, why would they want to do a nasty little thing like that? I don't know. I'm not such a bad guy. She goes, you're a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot. So I have a few faults. Who doesn't? Is that any reason to kill me? God, the long list of all those, condemning things, the weight of any one of those is actually enough. The long list is very humorous. But then as you mentioned, Chad, how slimy he is to just be like, yeah, okay, great. So what? Why are they trying to kill me? So funny. All right, DJ, we have come full circle. I ask you, I think I see where this is going, but on a 5-star scale with half-star intervals, what are you going to give this movie?
I'm gonna go with the 5.
I think I saw it coming.
Yeah.
And anytime you change one thing is that hard, then you know you have a 5 for you. So, good choice. Chad.
I went 4 stars. One of the
4?
things, yeah, 4 stars is great. And one of the things, and this is just going to hit personally, is the Mr. Hart epilogue. It went a little too dark. I have family that works in Brazil, and kidnapping is like a real concern from them. So when he gets kidnapped and is never heard from again, I'm like, yeah, that's not cool with me. So from a personal side, personal bias, that hurts. And I didn't dig the fantasy sequence as much as I wanted to, just because some of those other things interfered with my enjoyment. But I really love this movie. I think it's a fantastic comedy. I'd recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, wow. I'm 4.5, and because it's new to me, I'm sometimes a little bit reserved with going all out 5, because it's very well written, as we've talked about, and it's very likely that over time, this is one that I intend to return to. The rewatchability is probably there, and it has upside.
Oh.
It has upside to turn into a 5 for me. So I look forward to sharing this one with other people, and this is automatically like my favorite thing that I've seen with Jane Fonda, and like I have my favorite. It's Dolly Parton gained respect for me in my book, and I always love Lily Tomlin, but it's just this is another star on her chart there. So I mean, it elevated everybody's career to me, and I just really enjoyed it. Even as I'm talking about, you know what? I've never done this on the show before. You can leave all of this in, Chad. I'm going 5.
I'm not editing this, so you are.
Oh, then don't touch it when I release it then.
I won't.
Yes, you're right. I'm going 5. I've changed my mind even as I sat there. I was like, wait a minute, there's no reason not to go 5 right now. I think all the makings are there for this. So
Excellent. Sorry to drag it down, but 4 is still a great rating for me. So I loved it, and thank you for picking a fun movie, DJ.
Of course, yes, anytime.
yes, we needed some more fun stuff to do. So
Yeah,
now, Chad, do you want to help me pick one for next time?
I would love
You're
to.
a tech guy. You like computers. You like the software world. Let's do a movie from that spectrum here. This is for you here. Option number 1, Hackers from 1995. Hackers are blamed for making a virus that will capsize 5 oil tankers. Option 2, Swordfish from 2001. A covert counter-terrorist unit called Black Cell, led by the Gabriel Scheer, wants the money to help finance their war against international terrorism, but it's locked away. Gabriel brings in a convicted hacker, Stanley Jobson, to help him. Option 3, The Net from 1995. A computer programmer stumbles on a conspiracy, putting her life and the lives of those around her in great danger.
I've got to go with a dated reference, but got to go to my man Weird Al. What y'all want to do? Want to be hackers, code crackers, slackers, wasting time with all the chat room yackers? 9 to 5, chilling at Hewlett Packard? So yes, we're going hackers.
Hackers it is. You like Matthew Lillard. This should be good for you.
I love Matthew Lillard. He's a treasure. He's right up there with Dolly Parton in National Treasures.
I'm You're so mad at me.
Also the voice of Shaggy.
Zoinks.
Yes.
All right, DJ, thanks so much for coming on. We had a blast, as always, with you.
Thanks for having me back, and let's do it again.
And to all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable, we had fun here. We want to invite you to reach out to us. So we want to subscribe, rate, review, do all those wonderful things to support the show. Give reviews, like us on Facebook, engage with us, send us some Twitters at @movie_retro. Send us some Twitters. I don't know if that's... Send us some Twitters, I guess. I said
Yes. Send us some tweets.
Yes, you can make fun of
some M&Ms.
Yeah, some M&Ms. Emails at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. And providing and producing this podcast is fun, but not free. So we invite you to support the show at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Retro Movie Roundtable. Any contributions you make will go towards making the show better and are greatly appreciated. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Chad?
Human beings were not meant to sit in little cubicles staring at computer screens all day, filling out useless forms and listening to 8 different bosses drone on about mission statements.